2026 has already given PC players many new games to choose from, but not every release has delivered the same level of quality. Here's my personal ranking of the ones I've played, from masterpiece down to trash. Let's get straight into it. Timberborn is a colony simulation where beavers rebuild civilization after humanity disappears, managing food, water, housing, resources, and production. Its main mechanic is shaping a 3D landscape with dams, rivers, platforms, and other structures to control water and survive droughts and toxic bad water. What really stood out to me was how much freedom the building system gives me. I enjoyed changing the terrain, creating water routes, and figuring out how to keep my farms alive when conditions became dangerous. The vertical building also made my colony feel more creative, especially when I started using platforms and stacked structures to save space and improve production. I did make some bad decisions, including flooding my own base and nearly wiping out the colony, but those mistakes made the systems more satisfying to learn. With its smart water mechanics and strong colony building loop, I rank Timberborn in the excellent tier. Go-Go Town is a town-building life sim where players become mayor of a rundown settlement and work to turn it into a busy tourist destination. The gameplay mixes gathering, construction, farming, fishing, terraforming, cleaning, and managing residents who can handle jobs like shops and transportation. After getting into it, I really liked how easy it was to build at my own pace without feeling pressured by constant objectives. I spent a lot of time shaping the town, placing paths, opening new areas, and watching more visitors arrive as the settlement improved. Recruiting workers also made a big difference because I could slowly automate tasks that were tedious to handle myself. Riding around on a skateboard or bike while checking everything I had built was another small detail I enjoyed. The colorful visuals and relaxed progression made it easy to keep playing, so I'm placing Go-Go Town in the excellent tier. DragonSword Awakening is an action RPG set in the ruins of a fallen kingdom, where a hero awakens bound to an ancient sword once carried by the last dragon knight. Its open world includes exploration, puzzles, crafting, character progression, and party-based combat built around swapping characters during combos and combining status effects. Once I got into the combat, this became the strongest part of my experience. I liked switching characters at the right moment to extend combos instead of simply attacking with whoever had the highest damage. Combining effects like bleed, stun, and burn also made team building more interesting, especially when one character could trigger another character's status effect for extra damage. The progression system was weaker, with level caps and gear upgrades feeling more limited than I wanted. Still, the beautiful character designs and fast combat carried the experience well. With its excellent action and strong combat system, I'm placing DragonSword Awakening in the great tier. Resident Evil Requiem is a survival horror game that follows Leon Kennedy and Grace Ashcroft as they investigate a mysterious threat connected to Elpis and familiar infected enemies. It combines intense combat, puzzles, resource management, stealth, and two distinct gameplay styles. Once I got into both characters, I loved how differently their sections played. Leon felt powerful, with brutal melee attacks, weapon upgrades, finishers, and plenty of opportunities to tear through enemies. Grace created the opposite feeling, forcing me to conserve resources, stay quiet, craft useful items, and think carefully before confronting threats. Switching between their perspectives also kept the pacing fresh, moving from high-pressure action to moments where I was genuinely nervous about what could be hiding around the next corner. The story surprised me too, especially when the two characters' paths started connecting in unexpected ways. With an incredible atmosphere, memorable set pieces, and some of the strongest horror and action I've played this year, Resident Evil Requiem reaches the masterpiece tier. Mewgenics is a turn-based tactical roguelike RPG, where teams of cats battle across 10x10 grids, using classes, mutations, gear, and randomized abilities. Cats can be bred to pass down useful traits, while each run brings new enemies, loot, and unpredictable combinations that can completely change how a team works. Once I got into its systems, I found myself constantly planning around whatever cats and abilities I happened to get. I liked how breeding could create strange combinations. Then watching those traits interact with classes and gear during battles made each run feel different. Some fights became chaotic puzzles, where I had to understand how fire, ice, water, status effects, and abilities work together. Losing a strong cat could hurt, but rebuilding the team and discovering another powerful combination kept pulling me back. The huge amount of content and excellent music made it even easier to keep playing, so Mewgenics lands in the excellent tier. Gothic 1 Remake is an action RPG set inside a dangerous colony where a nameless hero must survive, join one of 3 camps, complete quests, and develop skills through learning points and trainers. Combat includes directional attacks, combos, blocking, parries, dodges, bows, magic, and resource management, while exploration rewards careful searching. After getting into its systems, I liked how progression made every skill choice matter. Improving a weapon skill could completely change how the hero attacked, so I always had to think about where my learning points should go. I also enjoyed exploring without constant map markers, since remembering NPC locations and discovering hidden items made the world more engaging. The combat became more enjoyable as my skills improved, although long trips across the map and some technical issues did slow things down. Still, the faithful world, strong progression, and rewarding exploration made this a solid remake, placing Gothic 1 Remake in the good tier. Death Stranding 2 On the Beach is an action-adventure game following Sam Porter Bridges as he expands the chiral network beyond America, traveling through Mexico and Australia while delivering cargo and connecting communities. The gameplay combines traversal, delivery planning, vehicles, combat, stealth, and online structures left by other players. Once I got into its systems, I was amazed by how much more freedom I had compared with the first game. Vehicles made deliveries faster, while new weapons and stealth tools gave me more ways to deal with enemies and BTs. I especially enjoyed using the off-roader to carry lots of cargo, then switching to quieter methods when things became dangerous. The boss fights added spectacular moments without taking away from the main focus on connection and storytelling. The emotional story, incredible visuals, performances, and atmosphere made this one of my strongest gaming experiences this year, earning it the Masterpiece tier. Shapez 2 is a factory-building game where players extract geometric shapes and process them through machines that cut, rotate, color, stack, and combine them into increasingly complex designs. There are no enemies or resource shortages, so the challenge comes from planning efficient production lines across multiple layers. Once I got deeper into the factory building, I liked how clearly each system worked. I could build a simple line, watch it run, spot a bottleneck, and then rebuild everything without penalties. The freedom to experiment made it easy to improve my layouts without wasting resources. As my factories became larger, conveyors, lifts, trains, and blueprints helped me manage large production networks without making the process too confusing. I also liked how the 1.0 progression gave my projects more direction while still letting me design things my own way. With its satisfying automation loop and excellent factory building tools, it earns a place in the excellent tier. Monster Hunter Stories 3 Twisted Reflection is a turn-based monster collecting RPG, where writers explore a semi-open world, hatch monsties from eggs, and battle alongside them using different weapons and tactical attacks. Battles combine power, speed, and technical attacks with elemental weaknesses, weapon types, part breaking, and wyvern soul gauges. After getting into the systems, I liked how many ways there were to improve my team. Finding eggs, hatching monsties, moving genes between them, and creating stronger combinations made exploration rewarding. I also enjoyed riding different monsters because their abilities let me fly, swim, climb, and interact with the world in different ways. The combat had plenty to think about, especially when I had to switch weapons or target specific parts instead of repeating the same attacks. The story was enjoyable too, although some political elements could have been developed further. With its deep systems and rewarding monster loop, I'm placing it in the good tier. MENACE is a turn-based tactics game where squads of space marines fight human factions and giant alien creatures across interplanetary missions. Combat revolves around action points, suppression, positioning, flanking, squad abilities, gear customization, and limited manpower, while a strategic layer lets you upgrade the ship and support your forces. Once I got into the battles, I liked how aggressive the combat encouraged me to be instead of sitting back and waiting. Suppression became a part of my strategy, letting me pin enemies while moving squads into better positions. I also enjoyed having named squad leaders with abilities, because building teams around their strengths made each mission more personal. Fighting the alien bugs forced me to change my approach, especially against heavily armored enemies that could ignore my weapons. The story and strategic layer felt underdeveloped in early access, but the tactical gameplay was strong enough to keep me coming back, earning it a great tier. Nioh 3 is an action RPG that moves the series into connected open zones, where players fight through enemies, complete objectives, and explore areas filled with shortcuts and optional encounters. Combat offers fast weapon-based attacks, key management, dodging, skills, and 2 distinct styles through Samurai and Ninja, each with different strengths. After getting into the combat, I really enjoyed how smooth and responsive every fight felt. I mostly played as Ninja because its movement and back attack bonuses suited the way I liked approaching enemies. The co-op also added a lot of fun, especially when coordinating attacks and builds with another player. I liked having both solo and co-op options because each changed how I approached encounters. The open areas were less successful, since repeated objectives and recycled enemies made exploration feel less exciting over time. Still, the excellent combat and satisfying character progression carried the experience for me, placing it in the excellent tier. Subnautica 2 is a survival adventure set on a dangerous ocean planet, where players gather resources, craft equipment, build underwater bases, and explore deeper regions filled with hostile creatures and hidden lore. The sequel also adds gene modifications, improved base building, currents, vehicles, and cooperative multiplayer. Once I got into the survival loop, I really liked how exploration kept giving me reasons to venture farther from my starting area. Finding materials, scanning creatures, and discovering dangerous locations made each trip feel rewarding. I also enjoyed building bases because expanding rooms and changing their layout was much easier than before. Playing in co-op added more fun, especially when exploring, collecting resources, and building together. The biggest problem was the limited early access content, since I reached the boundaries after running out of areas and crafting options. Still, the atmosphere, exploration, and multiplayer foundation made the experience strong enough to place it in the great tier. 007 First Light follows a James Bond as he trains for MI6 and gets pulled into a conspiracy tied to a former operative and the collapse of the 00 program. Gameplay mixes stealth, gunfights, combat, gadgets, disguises, hacking, and conversation choices across locations. Once I got into the missions, I liked how the game let me handle situations in several ways, instead of demanding perfect stealth. I could sneak through areas, manipulate conversations, use gadgets, or turn a bad plan into a fight. The melee combat was another highlight, with counters, environmental attacks, and transitions between hand-to-hand action and shooting. I enjoyed the variety of locations, from luxury resorts and markets to castles and secret facilities, because the campaign stayed varied. The younger Bond made the story more interesting, showing his reckless side while he learns what being an agent means. With strong presentation and excellent spy gameplay, I'm placing it in the excellent tier. Dinoblade is an action RPG where dinosaurs have evolved into armed warriors after an ancient catastrophe, with a young Spinosaurus fighting for survival while facing dangerous territories and colossal alpha dinosaurs. Combat mixes stamina management, dodging, parrying, attack patterns, exploration, and customizable abilities with weapons. Once I got into the combat, I liked how much weight each sword swing had. I had to watch enemy animations, wait for openings, and choose when to attack instead of simply mashing buttons. The alpha fights were my favorite because each boss demanded a new approach, and losing usually taught me something useful for the next attempt. I also enjoyed exploring the different biomes, especially when hidden routes led to legendary weapons or optional encounters. The world had plenty of personality, although some menus, camera issues, and repeated side content reminded me of its indie budget. With excellent combat and memorable bosses, I'm placing it in the excellent tier. Far Far West is a mission-based PvE roguelike shooter, where a robot cowboy travels by train, completes objectives, defeats bosses, and extracts with loot. Players upgrade weapons, spells, and gear while collecting temporary jokers that create different builds and combat effects. Once I got into the runs, I loved how much freedom the upgrade system gave me. I could improve my guns, mix elemental spells, and build strange combinations that changed how I approached each mission. The spells were especially fun, with fire, acid, electricity, voodoo, and cactus abilities creating powerful effects when combined. I also liked that missions were short enough to fit into my schedule without feeling rushed, while different objectives and modifiers kept the action varied. The humor and ridiculous robot cowboy setting added plenty of personality too. The empty maps and unclear joker stacking were small frustrations, but the exciting combat and rewarding progression made this an excellent tier pick. The Legend of Heroes Trails Beyond the Horizon is a story-driven JRPG following Van Arkride and multiple groups as they investigate an event tied to Calvard's first venture into space. It combines turn-based battles with real-time combat, shard systems, exploration, side quests, and multiple story paths. Once I got into the combat, I really liked how much faster and more active the real-time system felt. I could attack enemies directly, use arts, slow time, and trigger powerful awakening attacks before switching into traditional turn-based fights. The separate paths also made the story feel bigger, especially when familiar characters joined the adventure. The biggest issue was pacing, because too many side quests and repeated objectives slowed down the main story. Still, the final hours delivered some strong twists and a huge payoff that made the slower sections worthwhile. With its excellent combat and strong finale, I'm placing it in the great tier. Denshattack is an action game set in a futuristic Japan where players control a train, performing tricks, racing across tracks, and fighting an evil corporation. Gameplay combines jumping, drifting, grinding, wall riding, manuals, trick combos, alternate routes, collectibles, and challenging boss battles. Once I got into the controls, I loved how much freedom I had while riding through each level. Learning new tricks took practice, especially when more complicated moves required fighting game style inputs, but pulling off a long combo felt incredibly satisfying. I also enjoyed how every stage introduced something new, from volcano tracks and air currents to monorails and bizarre boss fights. The different routes gave me reasons to replay levels, while new trains and customization options added even more variety. The steep learning curve caused plenty of mistakes, but generous checkpoints kept failures from becoming frustrating. With creative levels, excellent music, and addictive trick-based gameplay, I'm placing it in the excellent tier. Windrose is a pirate survival game where a captain explores the West Indies, gathers resources, builds bases and ships, and searches for a stolen artifact linked to Blackbeard. Gameplay combines exploration, crafting, progression, land combat, naval battles, and multiplayer across dozens of islands. Once I got into the survival loop, I liked how exploration constantly gave me reasons to improve my gear and expand my base. Building was one of my favorite parts because I could create a large pirate settlement and customize it in different ways. Sailing between islands also made the world feel bigger, especially with sea shanties playing during voyages. The combat was less successful, since enemies had huge health pools and often appeared in groups, making fights feel more tedious than challenging. Still, the mix of survival, exploration, shipbuilding, and pirate adventure gave me plenty to do, with a strong foundation for future updates. I'm placing it in the great tier. Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced is a rebuilt pirate action-adventure following Edward Kenway as he sails the Caribbean, explores islands, fights enemies, and builds his reputation. It adds rebuilt parkour, stealth, combat, naval battles, dynamic weather, ship upgrades, and new post-game content. Once I got into the adventure, I really enjoyed how much smoother everything felt compared with the original. The improved combat added parries, dodges, rope darts, and adaptive enemies, giving me more options during fights. Sailing remained my favorite part, especially when battling multiple ships using new cannon types and ramming enemies after upgrading my crew. I also liked the expanded hideout, new officer quests, extra locations, and changes that removed many frustrating mission failures. The climbing could still feel sluggish at times, but it was a small issue compared with the number of improvements. With stronger combat, excellent naval gameplay, and meaningful quality of life upgrades, I'm placing it in the great tier. Crimson Desert is an open-world action-adventure set across a massive fantasy world, where players explore regions, complete quests, fight enemies, solve puzzles, hunt, gather resources, and develop multiple characters. Its systems also include mounts, gliding, settlement management, minigames, and large-scale battles. Once I got into the world, I enjoyed how much freedom it gave me to wander away from the main path and discover unexpected activities. I could hunt, fish, gamble, manage resources, and stumble across unusual events while traveling between locations. The combat had some great moments too, especially when using different abilities and movement options against larger groups. However, long fights, repetitive side activities, awkward puzzles, and inconsistent bosses sometimes slowed things down. The story and characters were also weaker than I expected, while technical issues occasionally caused problems. Still, the huge world, impressive visuals, and sheer variety kept me exploring for a long time, so I'm placing it in the great tier. Palworld is a creature-collecting survival game where players explore a dangerous open world, capture pals, build bases, craft equipment, and fight hostile creatures and human factions. Pals can battle alongside you or work at your base, automating farming, crafting, cooking, and resource gathering as your settlement grows. Once I got into the survival loop, I loved the reasons to keep exploring. Catching new pals was exciting because each creature could help in combat or handle useful jobs back at my base. I enjoyed building up my camp and watching pals work together to automate tasks that would otherwise take ages. Exploring new biomes, finding dungeons, fighting bosses, and unlocking flying mounts kept making the world more interesting. Resource grinding could become annoying, especially when I needed large amounts of ore, but playing with friends made those problems easier to handle. With deep survival systems and endless fun, I'm placing it in the excellent tier. Heroes of Might and Magic. Olden Era is a turn-based strategy game where heroes explore maps, gather resources, discover artifacts, recruit armies, and develop cities that produce stronger units. Battles are tactical, with each faction offering different units, strengths, weaknesses, and hero specializations. Once I got into the campaign, I really liked how much thought went into building my armies and choosing how to develop each hero. Different factions encouraged me to change my approach, while tactical battles let weaker forces win through better positioning and decisions. I also enjoyed exploring the maps because there were always resources, monsters, artifacts, or other discoveries waiting nearby. The beautiful unit designs made building an army even more satisfying, especially when seeing everything come together on the battlefield. The extra loss system felt less useful and sometimes added busy work, but the strong strategy foundation kept me playing far longer than expected. I'm placing it in the great tier. That's my ranking of the best PC games of 2026 so far. Some surprised me, while others completely lived up to the hype. Let me know your favorites, and I'll see you in the next one.
All these new